Welcome to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society, whose mission is creating unity through music. And as I often like to say, making connections through music with the intention of bringing peace. And today we are in Studio One at the worldwide headquarters of the Planetary Gig Society. Very, very pleased to be able to talk with a great musician, and I tell you, a guy who's very inspiring for what he's just been doing in the last year, Mr. Andy Noyes. Andy, thanks so much for taking the time to talk with us.
You're welcome. Wonderful to be here.
So we met yesterday.
Way back.
Yeah, we go way back. But I just found this fascinating, and I don't quite know how the connection happened, but I must have seen it on Facebook and a friend shared it or something. But I heard this guy from Wisconsin or someplace was going to go around the country in a van with his pal wife, Linda, and do house concerts, calling it the Tour de Friends. And I thought, that is so awesome. And I sent a Facebook message or something, I guess, saying, if you're in the DC area, come by. And here we are. And it's almost a year later since when you started.
Oh, quite, yeah.
So we certainly want to talk about that. But let me ask first what I'm always interested in. When did music come into your life? I mean, you're a guitar player, sound engineer, all these, you've been in music your whole life, really. How did that happen? How did music kind of tap you on the shoulder and decide to make you an acolyte or whatever it does?
Always a wonderful burning question that I can just kind of turn over and over like a small worn stone. I can just think that over and over and kind of come up with different ways to look at it. But my mom was a piano teacher, pianist, and a painter, and jewelry maker, whatever, whatever the muse moved her to do, she certainly did it, and it was a great inspiration. But so there was a piano in the house, and that was clearly an energy source in the home. It was just it was a happy place for sure, and not that we really all sat around playing the piano and singing songs all the time. It wasn't really quite that, but that piano was powerful, and it had good stuff in it. I could sense that from a really early age. And I can remember pretty much as soon as I could reach those keys, I could feel it. And you're when you're that tall, your face is down where the soundboard is and stuff, upright piano. And so you're kind of down in the vortex there. And I remember the big day was when I reached up and I could hit the keys and put my foot across and put down the sustain pedal. So like I opened up the mystery box, those notes went on and on and on. So I just felt like I tapped into it right there. Wow. That was kind of a big moment. And I knew I was onto something. I couldn't articulate it because I was probably about 4, I guess. Yeah. But that was when the gate maybe swung open a little bit.
And so there was music in your house, your mom played, and then did you start taking, I think you might have mentioned you started taking piano lessons? How early was that, and how long did you do that?
It's a good question. I guess I was about 8 or 10 or somewhere in there. I really don't know for sure. And that was probably an intensive 6 years or so that I guess. I studied hard and played, gave it my all. My mom had the vast wisdom not to be my teacher. I recommend that folks don't take that bait that you think you should help your children as their teacher. Give them over to someone else. Mm-hmm. It's a little safer. And so I had a fine piano teacher, and that was a good arrangement for a long time. I did a lot of ear training. I did a lot of sight reading. I did a lot of kind of boots on the ground music learning, although quite formal. I look at my report cards from that time. Apparently I was pretty good, but after a while it didn't really resonate, and I felt I needed to move away from that structured music.
You were playing classical music, or the music wasn't really turning you on?
Precisely, yeah. The only thing I remember really turning on to was a little piece called the Jazz Prelude, and it had some blue notes. It had some minor seconds, some chromatic motion, and I got off on that. But I didn't know what that was. I just dug it. And I had a teacher, unfortunately, who couldn't really show me the path of jazz and blues. And I kind of withered on the vine, and not knowing that was what was going on, but it was hurt. I just it hurt to move forward in the progress that I was doing anyway, in the styles of music. And so I begged off at that time and stopped piano.
You're a teenager.
Yeah, you bet. Early teens, and it was sort of like, no, my folks were of course in deep counsel saying, honey, this is a bad idea. Don't walk away. And I said, it's hurting music. I have to walk away. And so I did, and then I came back to it through harmonica and six-string guitar, and six-string guitar was my blank slate, my tabla rasa or whatever, and I just forged it in my own, sort of emotional and mental image. So I thought. I was, all of 16, 15. But that was, so the first year I spent pretty much in open tunings, just going, the heck with y'all, I'm just going to do my thing.
Wow.
and yes, I played in standard tunings with my buddies, doing the Neil Young songs and all that, and that was formative as well. But a lot of it was just spent open country and open tunings, just feeling it out. And then, anyway, on it goes.
It's something actually that, as being older and, in the midst of learning guitar, I'm not even sure I know how to do that. I mean, just really noodle and goof around and try different tunings and things like that. I'm maybe because I'm older, I'm a little more structured. I feel like there needs to be a bit of, I don't even know what I'm talking about, but clearly that's something that's useful in learning to play an instrument, is just fooling around.
Yeah, indulging that time. Beware of bad habits. You get really good at them. Techniques, things like that. That's a whole nother show. But absolutely. Just maybe finding the joy of one note, and really, that's a journey in itself. All sorts of things like that. Experimenting with different rhythms. There's just unpacking the ways of exploring music. You could just spend a day on rhythm alone, or more than a day, a lifetime.
Yeah.
As we know. But so that's.
So then, did you start playing in rock bands and different kinds of bands, and did you continue that through sort of college era and 20s and?
I did. Largely it was, small format, jamming circles and things like that. Performance was not where I was drawn to necessarily. I just needed to play music. That I was sure of. And I had other passions. I thought I was a visual artist. That dried up pretty fast, and I was playing 3 hours a day of guitar or more, and I was a art major. I quickly became a music major, but it did, it wasn't too long before in college I was doing the band thing. So, and again, social music, it's many hands make the lifting crazy fun. And so there was a lot of that, the early reggae bands and stuff that...
Yeah, you played a lot of different styles, I'm assuming, yeah.
You bet. It's all music.
And then how did you kind of get into, I know you did the sound engineering part of it, and at what point did you sort of decide, well, this is kind of my career too, or?
It's kind of funny, if I can put a quick circle around it. At probably about age 20, 19, I had an opportunity to align myself with people who were just kind of getting a little sound company going, and they were musicians as well. And I was invited in to sort of be part of that team, and I was very fired up about sound, audio in general, recording, and sound reinforcement. And it was also a chance to hang out with real musicians who thought and laughed at the same things I did and thought as I did, and didn't have a passion for sleep and things like that. And that became clear as if I move forward with an audio career, I can kind of grow my garden of music, my journey of music. I can grow that a little more slowly and carefully, because somewhere in my head, I felt like, God, I don't want to wake up in 30 years and realize I played Louie Louie every weekend, for a pitcher of beer and $30, and I have no teeth left. Good on people who do that, and if that fulfills their journey, great. But I felt I was called for something different, so I sort of insulated my sort of some of my musical growth with this sound company, this audio career. And but then you do paths like that, and you wake up 30 years later and go, I am not walking a fulfilled life. I'm a little uncontent with things, and why am I miserable? I'm doing what I thought I liked, and I own this company, or I co-own this company, and so forth. We have great gigs, but and meanwhile I was doing music the whole time, and I was performing in bands and stuff. But that was all sort of alongside this other audio career, and then I realized it was time to let go of the audio and just embrace music full time, and that was at least 10 years ago. And I'd been teaching guitar the whole time, all that, so I kind of had this full terrain already in motion, so I just kind of turned down the volume on the audio career and turned it up on full-time performance and teaching.
And so obviously you've been doing that a lot. That's your main gig, so to speak.
Yeah.
But then take us to Tour de Friends and what the thought process was with that, and really just what have you been doing for the last year? You left Wisconsin and went around and done 50-some shows, and I'm just really interested to hear you tell us about that.
Yeah, that's kind of some big terrain. It's sort of, it's certainly been something we've thought about for a long time, and I say we because my wife Linda and I are both in tandem on this vision. I get to hop up and play music in front of all of our friends and former strangers around the nation, and that's a gas, but I couldn't get there without her. So, but who doesn't want to head for the horizon with a dream in your pocket, and a song in your hat? Who doesn't want to do that? And so that's certainly right there. But we're not retired and we're not on vacation, so how do you make that work? And that's where Linda is really good at it, getting this together. And so yeah, we all want to head for the horizon and have an adventure, but I also felt very strongly that I want to bring something to the table. I want to be in the presence of others, bringing out the best in all of us, insofar as I can, or whatever my part of that is. And Linda does that as well. So that's sort of down in the seedbed of how this all started. Now that goes back some years, and you kind of scratch away at it and go, we did a little house concert run out to the West Coast and back to Wisconsin, and that felt good. And some other life things bubbled up, and we kind of put that on the back burner, but we sort of had the template figured out, and nothing new under the sun for house concerts. That's been going on a long time. But at any rate, it became evident maybe we could do this. And then it's like, oh, what do you do with the cat, or kitty, and things like that? Well, you figure it out, and more importantly, you put a date on it. Eventually we said, all right, we gotta put a date out on the horizon so we can make it. Otherwise, if we keep talking about it, we're going to get in our own way. You just don't get in your own way after a fashion. If it seems feasible, it is.
So when did you start, and what was that like? And You've done how many now? Last night was 55?
55, yeah.
55 house concerts in about a year. Traveling around, how many miles did you say?
I'd say we're probably getting right up to 23,000 now. It was 22,000 a week or two ago, and it's probably 23,000 miles at this point. We left last November 2018 or 2017 rather, and we put our home on Airbnb and just kind of figured out how to cut tie, and sort of like living on a sailboat. You're just gonna go poke around and see what's up. Well, and part and parcel of that, to know where you're going in that sailboat, we put down a map of the U.S. and just started looking at it real closely and so on. Well, we know people here, and we know people here, and across the arc of your life, back to your childhood friends, they're all there for us. They should be. We should be there for them. And I thought, let's just go wake them up, our friends and family, and see what else happens as we sort of engage the universe that way. And a friend kind of gave us some directives, opened some doors. Why don't you go down to Key West and be at our place down there and kind of get your tour legs on. Well, we had no idea how valuable that would be in November, December, to be in someplace that warm, to just unpack the van and really get it ready, get our kitty cat ready for the tour, get all the contacts in place, and start the social media blitz that are also our college, Northam College, was very helpful in getting a lot of alumni behind what we were doing. And, again, you start leaning into it, and the universe provides pretty well.
And you've been doing house concerts. I mean, I just think it's brilliant, and was so attracted to the whole concept and what you were doing. Tour de Friends is a great, moniker for it, sort of branding and all that. It just really says it. It speaks to it. And house concerts are wonderful experiences for the listener. So do you mind talking a little bit about how those experiences, or maybe examples or stories of along the way and things that happened, and not necessarily the good or the bad, but I'm sure you practically have a book you could write about this.
Could be. We're gonna have to get home this winter and see what happens. Yeah, and just to kind of put a little background to why I'm so attracted to house concerts, and I mentioned this last night in the show a little bit. I occasionally talk about it. I just feel like it's the oldest gig going in humankind. You finish your day, you've done your hunting and gathering, your kids are fed. We're back at the cave, and the campfire is lit, and let's get around the fire and tell stories and sing to each other. And I feel it's a continuum that we need at this time. I always have needed, and I think we need it more than ever. So just to get around the campfire of the moment, so to speak, and that means the world. And the real inspirations that I've always had, and it goes back to living room music, is when I was a child. I grew up on the south side of Chicago, working class kind of neighborhoods, and a real fascinating mix of characters, from Irish families, immigrants right off the boat practically, not really, but in my mind. They didn't speak as we did, and I was from a New England family in the middle of south side Chicago, which was equally exotic, as you might imagine, and my parents would have these house parties, and across the backyard was a fellow named Tom Noonan, and he was a master pianist and showman too, and he'd come over and play Mom's piano, and he would play Alley Cat and Girl from Ipanema and everything under the sun, and would make people so happy. And that's powerful stuff when you see adults doing things you never thought you'd see adults doing. And they'd move back all the furniture and they'd all be dancing. And they'd be dancing with each other's wives and husbands and having a blast. And I'd watch what each song would do to the mood of the room and how people would act and change. What would Girl from Ipanema do versus Alley Cat or whatever, that would, what would blow up the room and what would draw it in close. And, the dancing would change, obviously, all that. And it was powerful. That I got it. And so, the form of the living room concert to me made a whole lot of sense before I knew it did. So, flash forward to where we're at now. I have a body of music that I don't really get to play. I haven't really got my format together that it would work for the bands that I play in. I love my bands, or our bands, and if they'll have me back. But I needed to go on a bit of a mission, on a bit of a pilgrimage to honor a lot of the music that I write that doesn't really have a forum in a bar or maybe even a coffee shop is not quite enough to really take in this experience. So I owe it to the music to do it, and so that's what put me out on the road and just kind of turned out the lights on what we were doing back home, and kind of go on a pilgrimage with this music that I'm fortunate enough to tune into.
That's interesting what you said about you owe it to the music. How would you elaborate on that? What does that mean?
Sure. Maybe I don't know where this music and inspiration comes from. Maybe I do. Maybe I don't want to look right at it. I don't want to scare it off. But this muse that seeks me out and keeps me flowing, it's sort of like, I don't know, there's a lot of ways to kind of articulate it for conversation's sake, but it's kind of like being tuned in to the radio of the universe. Just this stuff is floating around, and I can't really explain it any other way. How else would I know how to make a left turn and a right turn and all this musically, particularly with instrumental music? It's very, very clear terrain to me, and I don't know how I know what I know. I'm not worried about that, but I also know that I'm serving something much bigger than myself, and I think I owe it to that source that has sought me out.
Yeah, well said.
To share it out, as importantly.
So one thing I noticed last night in the house concert, you played the first song and said, well, you told the audience, I kind of tricked you because this isn't the same. This isn't just one song. This is a song that sort of changes and won't be the same again. And I'd be interested if you could talk a little bit about that, as well as clearly I got this perspective from you that it's not just the musician playing. You could be standing out in the middle of the forest playing, but it really is a shared experience with everybody there. So you've kind of got this, it's almost like a mystical, spiritual, quantum physical aspect to all these things. That to me, that came through the show last night.
Bingo. And again, the House Concert Forum, we're all gathered kind of around this flame of sorts of the moment, and you have a real meaningful forum to take some chances that way. So I open each show with a kind of a 1-2 move. I wouldn't call it a punch because it's not a punch, but a 1-2 punch that from the very first notes that I play, it's an improvisation. And so, what I offer to the audience is, when it's done, is I say, well, I'd never heard that, and you hadn't either. In other words, that we were in completely new terrain, and so I put up an improvisation in the front end of the show or the experience that we all take a trust fall in a way, and the audience doesn't. I don't want to say, and I'm going to go places I've never been. That's not. You don't say that. You just do it, and I think people can feel it, and I know they can, and I think it's incumbent on the experience to take that risk and to offer that risk as value. That we're all going to go someplace we've never been before. And then I bring that in, I morph that front end improvisation into a piece that I call No Me Without You, which kind of brings it around full circle. In other words, I would play this music by myself because it's my medicine, but it's a far greater value, or it's a complete circle when the audience or the experience is full by having the music experienced.
It's a little bit like that African concept, Ubuntu. Without all of us, there's none of us.
Yeah.
In a sense.
Yeah.
That it is a shared experience. We're all kind of co-creating things.
Yeah, that's where I like to say, it's not hooray for me tonight. It's hooray for us.
Yeah.
That we're together. We've created a still point that everything else that's before and after this doesn't matter as much as it does right now. What the present means.
So you've talked a little bit about the power of music. We used to see it in your house with, the piano and pulling the rug back and the way people act. But other things that you have noticed, have sensed, felt about the power of music in your life and other people's lives, it does seem pretty obvious that there's something going on there. Other thoughts about that, because you're very, introspective, thoughtful, spiritual dude. That could be your title.
Your dudeness. Yes. Again, there are so few currents in our lives that draw us into the present, that bring all to bear, and in so many ways bring out the best in us. Or if it brings out something, maybe some negative emotions or whatever, it sort of is a way to cleanse those. It brings it out in a real pure way, and that we don't need words. We don't need a spoken language to sort this information out. It just flows. It's as we feel it's energy, neither created nor destroyed. It's just pure stuff, and that's great. General speaking there, I realize, but it's the pure stuff, and it calls us to the moment like few other things can. And we can go down the rabbit hole of the vibrational coordinates that resonate and bring out certain emotions or whatever else, and they can be organized as music, and they can be organized as joy and warning and laughter and all kinds of things. But it's the pure stuff. I don't know.
It's the pure stuff. Music is the pure stuff. So I also, the Planetary Gig Society has got this mission of making connections with music and having the intention of bringing peace, tapping into peace, uncovering peace, whatever you want to say. And I believe that the answers are out there for us to really make a difference. And it's not just me or you or one or two, they're out there. And so what do you think people can do as far as music is concerned to help tap into that, make a better world? I mean, your tour to friends, I think, is just so brilliant and such a great example of taking that out there, being a troubadour, going out and bringing that experience out there. And if you want to talk a little bit about that and tour to friends and what it's meant or whatever, but what thoughts do you have about things we can do, people can do, you can do, I can do?
Great question, and I'm eternally working on that too. I think that also music is one of those few pure sources in our DNA and also in our society that we can trust. And trust is community building, and community building is trust. And music is sort of the juice that sort of inflates that tire. In a lot of ways, we can all more or less agree. We don't all like the same kind of music, but what music does inside of us, we do agree. And that can awake, every element of our being, and awakening is very unifying. I think if you're awake, then you want to find other people who are awake, and music's the juice that I go for, that I trust, and I think community can trust. So getting it on a living room level, I'm here to tell you that our society looks a lot better from that view, from that baseline. I think we're doing all right. I think we're trying to get through our day, each and every one of us, and make it a better place in the little ways that we can turn the wheel, and for our children and all that good stuff. We really are, and we can trust it when it's intimate, and cautioning against being too intimate. If we just end up in our headphones and don't look each other in the eye, we don't build trust that way. We might find some inner peace, but it's hard to. It doesn't translate well, and we need to do it socially, I think.
Well, Andy, you're doing just a great job. You and Linda, this Tour de Friends, as I said, has been inspiring to me. I think to many others, maybe, hopefully, other musicians. More gigs around the planet is certainly something I think is worth shooting for. And you're laying out a bit of a pathway, and maybe we can conspire to add to that effort. Whatever I can do to help out, and it's a good path to be on, I think.
It is, yeah, and again, kind of wanting to seek the horizon and have an adventure, but again, incumbent on us bringing something to the table for everybody. And it's sure a lot more fun that way. Yeah.
Well, Andy, thanks very much. You're about to wrap up this tour. We're very, privileged to be a part of it. Great meeting you. Thanks very much for taking the time to do this podcast interview, and I think our paths will cross again.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jefferson.
You've been listening to Planetary Gig Talk, Tales of Music and Magic. I'm your host, Jefferson Glassy, Chief Spiritual Dude of the Planetary Gig Society. We talk with musicians and others about the power of music and how we can use music to help create a better world. Please check out our website, www.planetarygigs.org, for information about some of the organizations promoting music and musicians, resources about the power of music, books, movies, articles, including new research on music and the brain. We welcome your support. The Planetary Gig Society is a Section 501c3 charitable organization, and you can donate on the website. You also can receive a free email signature block demonstrating your support for Planetary Gig Society. Please follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Planetary Gigs. And we want to thank fabulous musician and teacher Eric Weinberg of Little Eric Studios for the Planetary Gig Talk music titled Chill Kid, It's Saul. So please check out Planetary Gig Talk on iTunes, Google Play, and Stitcher. Subscribe and hear all the upcoming episodes. Thanks very much.